Meditators, this is our last sit together with this particular meditation team. So let's all make it count. Let's gather ourselves again for the last time. And let's start again with Anapana. Seeing on this last morning, how sharp we can get our awareness. After this, you're going to be even more in control of your practice. And I'm sure a few of you won't be sitting for 8 hours a day in your regular lives. So your sensitivity might slightly reduce. So then every time you sit, you can start with Anapana, just to make sure the mind is clear, clean, and collected. when your mind is sharp, clear, and non-reactive, then start to travel into the body. Beginning this exploration of yourself again. Seeing what you're made of today. Did your internal world change? Are there any feelings or patterns you've picked up from the last day? Has anything opened to you that used to be closed? Check again one more time. Remembering that if there is any noise or residue from any of the communication or the movements of your mind yesterday, all you need to do is feel sensation as sensation, and it will start to fade into the background. As you feel through the signal, the reality of what you are, let the noise just fade away. Relax yourselves to practice single stream for a few minutes. If you need to change your posture, come into a more comfortable position. And then slowly open your mouth. Just enough so that you can feel the natural breath coming in and out of your mouth. Collect your awareness, feeling your breath on the lips. And then follow your sensations through the tongue to the back of the throat and down to the center of the chest. Then collect yourself there. Then from the center of your chest, follow your awareness out to your heart, your physical heart. And then just let your awareness move freely from there. Following where it leads you. Then let's come back to the center of our chest. And send a bit of love to everyone in the room and out of the room that supported you through this. Your meditation team, and everyone else that made this possible. And this all started with one man who was willing to give up everything to see if there was an answer to the question about human suffering. Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. So let's all send some love to him for what he went through to bring this technique back to us. And then think of all the meditators it took to get this technique from the Buddha all the way to us. This long chain of meditators over the past 2,600 years. Let's send some love to everyone in that chain to help to keep this technique alive and get it to us here today. And you are now part of that chain. So feel yourself at the end of it, receiving and collecting all of that love back in yourself. Anchoring it within you. I love this technique, as I'm sure you can feel by now, and I've been happy to share it all with you. But it was nearly lost a lot of places along the way. And now that you're Vipassana meditators, you should know how. Actually, right in the beginning, that day that the Buddha sat down and he knew that he was either destined to achieve enlightenment or to give the whole thing up, and luckily for us, it looks like he did, he came back and he saw the possibility of him teaching. And then he just had 4 students that were sitting there. And he thought, I can just teach these guys and I can be done with the whole thing. Because you develop the ability to project into the future. And he saw how troublesome it'd be for him to teach for the next 45 years that he knew he'd be alive. And he thought, I could just not go through that. I'll just teach these guys, then I'll be done. I'll cross over into Nirvana and this will all be over. But apparently, when someone achieves enlightenment, it sends some kind of shockwave through the universe. And all the other immaterial beings, they knew, oh, someone's done it. There's a new Buddha in the world. And they saw that the Buddha was about to make this choice and about to cross over. And one of them, who is a king of one of those spiritual realms, he decided to go and talk to the Buddha. And he went and he begged him. And he said, I know how troublesome it would be for you to teach. But think how many beings there are in the world with just a little bit of dust on their eye. And if you just help us to brush that dust off, think of what we'll all attain because of you. And so that's why the Buddha agreed to stay. But we were that close to him not teaching the rest of us. But then luckily he did, and he spread it. And it got to millions of people, even in his own time. But then we nearly lost it again. Because then after he died, there were arguments over how it should be taught, how it should be catalogued, all of this stuff that usually happens when a key figure dies, and they turn the thing into a religion. And then that got split into many sects and taught in many different ways. And there was an emperor called Ashoka in India at the time. And he just decided to kill all the Buddhists. He thought they were a threat to his rule. So he sent people out to go around and kill all the people practicing. Not uncommon in a situation like this when a prophet comes about. But then apparently, the woman that he loved convinced him not to and converted him to Buddhism. And so then he not only became someone who stopped hunting down and killing Buddhists, he became the person who was sending out Buddhist missionaries to other countries. So again, we nearly lost it, but then it stayed alive. And then he sent missionaries out to other Asian countries, Southeast Asia, China, eventually through China to Japan, and then it survived. But then again, the technique gets caught in the monasteries, in all the traditional systems, and it gets stuck there. And then we fast forward to the last century, and there was a Burmese priest called Ledi Sayadaw. And there's an argument in the monastic community, because monks do argue as well, that we shouldn't be taught Vipassana. That most regular humans, lay people, as we'd all be called, should only be taught Anapana. And it's not the time for Vipassana, for people to be taught Vipassana. So in a lot of monasteries, they kept it locked up and they didn't teach it. Ledi Sayadaw was one of the people on the other side of this, and he decided to start teaching regular people like us. And then there was a man in Burma called Sayagyi Ubakin. He was a junior accountant or a junior clerk in the accountant's office. And one of Ledi Sayadaw's monks had got to him, and he'd heard that there were Vipassana courses being taught. And so he decided to take 10 days out of his work to be able to go and learn. And he was threatened with being fired for that. He said, look, if you go, you can go, his bosses said, but you might not come back to a job. So he's like, no, I've got to do it anyway. So he went and he did it, and he learned Vipassana. And he didn't come back to being fired. He came back to a promotion. And then Burma went through a revolution, and he actually ended up as the accountant general of the accountant's office. And Vipassana had changed him so deeply that he became so capable a human being that he got to the point where he not only cleaned up corruption in the accountant general's office, they gave him 4 other departments to manage. And he did this all at the same time as having a room in his office where he would teach all of his employees. And they would go through cycles of all learning Vipassana so they could clean themselves up too. He created a whole system that still exists to this day. It's called the International Meditation Centers. You can find it online. His tradition holder was a woman called Mother Siyamaji, and he passed it down to her. Sadly, both of them have now passed away. Rest in peace, both of them. But she helped to expand the tradition and made more centers around the world, so you can find them in a few different countries if you want to go and practice, and they still teach to this day. I think that tradition has now been handed down to a man called Roger Bischoff in the UK. But it didn't end there. Sayagyi Ubakin had another student called S.N. Goenka, an Indian Burmese man that he trained up to teach. And Goenka took the tradition back to India and started teaching people. And eventually he started teaching so many people that it got to about 250 centers around the world. He spent the rest of his life spreading and building centers to teach Vipassana freely. From Goenka, it got into what we now know as the modern mindfulness movement. John Kabat-Zinn, Jack Cornfield, even Ram Dass, a lot of these people, they went and practiced in Goenka or Sayagyi Ubakin centers. They brought the technique back to the West and created what we know as mindfulness. From the modern mindfulness movement comes CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that people might not even know is connected to Vipassana. But this technique that's used to treat depression and stress of scanning the body, this is just low-level Vipassana. But at many points along the way, it was nearly extinct. And it's a tradition of rebels. Because even the Buddha in the beginning, he went and he practiced with his religions at the time. He learned from a bunch of teachers. There's documents showing it. But he decided not to follow any of those traditions because he just wanted to seek the truth. He wanted to find a technique that led all the way to the truth. And he had to go against the traditions at the time to do it. All the way to Ledi Sayadaw, who had to turn against the monastic tradition to teach us, and then continue to spread it. All these people practice in their own different ways. I'm not part of any one of these traditions, and I don't want to be, because I've benefited from all of them. I've practiced in Goenka centers, Siagyu Ubakin centers, with Thai monks, with Chinese monks, with Tibetan lamas, and they each teach Vipassana in their own particular way. The monks that come and teach here sometimes, they teach a version of Vipassana that their own founder started to be able to look into. So I'm not trying to make anyone here a part of any tradition, except for digging deep into Vipassana as a practice itself. Like I said at the beginning of this course, I don't really care about being a teacher, and I'm not a guru. I just learned this because I also wanted to help people who were suffering. First my family, then the people that I loved, and eventually spreading out from that, realizing it can go so much further. And my main goal is simple, is for you to realize that each of you has a teacher within. Vipassana is a program, and you can see, you can tap into it, and it's there, it's in you. Everything that any teacher says is just trying to guide you to the point where you have that direct experience and you have the program acting within you. That program that leads to liberation. Goenka says something on the courses at the end, that there's a tradition in India called Guru Dakshina. It's the payment you give to a teacher for a technique you've learned. And if you don't give that payment, the technique doesn't work. So everyone has to pay. Not the donation you give for the courses, because that goes for more courses and to help other students. What Goenka asks for is that you remember him. When we think of this chain of meditators that we're sending love to, you send love to him as well. I want something different from my payment. I love this technique, and I want it to survive. And each of you now has a piece of the program within you. And I never want us to get to another point where the technique, the true technique, could go extinct again. So my payment is that you teach someone else. If there's someone that you love, someone that's suffering, or maybe on the other hand, someone that you know is on the cusp of just understanding this, and you can see it. They've been through what they need to go through to get there. They just haven't quite got the technique. Then teach them. Because the Buddha didn't say that we should preserve it within a tradition. That's other people that say that. The Buddha told us very clearly what he thinks about teaching. And he said, the best people to teach are people who've learned from their own experience. And so if you've learned something from your own experience, if you've tapped into something, then teach it to people, pass it on, give it freely to be able to help the people that you encounter. But if you want to go and practice in the other centers, I said I would talk about them yesterday, and they're all beautiful and they do it in their own different way. I learned this first in the Goenka Center in New Zealand, and it's a beautiful place. I'd highly recommend everyone go and meditate there. The meditation hall has a lot of power in it. A lot of old meditators have attained states there, and you can feel it when you walk into the hall. And that's where I was sneaking into the hall all night and meditating for 18 hours. So if you want to go and sit in the same place, that's where to go. And in the Goenka centers, they're quite strict and harsh with the rules, as they should be, because they're preserving the technique and they want it to be a very specific way. And Goenka didn't really train teachers. He trained assistant teachers that sit there and help to guide you through the process. but it's his recorded teachings that you learn. And you go there, and you're like a prisoner for 10 days, but you're a prisoner with the aim of getting free. They keep you locked up for your own benefit, to be able to go through and learn the thing. And I've been part of helping people to do it in that tradition. So 7 years after I learned, my mother finally decided to go to a Vipassana center. I was super excited. Obviously, I want my mother to be able to learn and get this as well. It's one of the main reasons I started learning. And so she was at my house before we were about to drive there. And she's looking through my fridge with what we've got left over. And there's some cheese left there. And she's like, oh, you've got some cheese left. I should probably finish it, before we get to the center. Otherwise, it's going to go bad. And I'm like, no. You don't want to be eating any cheese now. You want to be light when you get to the center. You don't want to have the substance in you. And she's like super disappointed because she likes cheese. She's like, oh, all right then. But we didn't go to a center, a Goenka center. We went to one of the Siagi Uberkin centers, another beautiful place in the south of England. And so we drove there and we get there. And as we arrive and we do the check-in process, it's not that strict. It's quite relaxed and the people are a bit more open. And we walk into the dining room and there's this massive spread of food just laid out for us, a literal smorgasbord, including a whole table of cheese. My mother gets to it and just looks at me. Yeah, I felt like a proper dick. And then they've got a whole table at the back in the corner that's just covered with desserts. And I'm like, wow, they're really setting you up for the beginning of this course. And then so we sit that course, and it's with Roger Bischoff, the guy who would later take over the tradition after Mother Siyamaji would pass away. Because back then she was quite old. She was in her 90s, and she couldn't teach. But you'd see her, she even had difficulty walking, so sometimes she'd crawl to the pagoda to sit there and meditate. That's how dedicated she was. But then we get on the course, and in the Goenka courses, they're very strict about the meal times and about how much you should have and staying empty and making sure that you resist any of the temptations. But we're there, and Roger's like a kindly old English man, and he's there teaching the discourses. He's like, if you're in pain and it's difficult, then just maybe get up and take a walk. It's no problem. He's like, and if you're still in pain, then just go to the dining room and get some chocolate. And then you'll feel better, and then come back and meditate when you're ready. And I was like, okay, this isn't how I was used to being taught this technique. And I'll walk past the dining room on the way back to my room at night, and the lights are on and it's open all night. And they never took away the dessert table. They replenish it every day, and there's just stacks of desserts there that you can go and munch on whenever you want, if you feel the need to. Sometimes there are people sitting there in the middle of the night crying into their desserts, So there's a lot of ways to learn this. The Thai monks have their very own particular flavor that some of you have come and meditated with us here when we have them here will know. Beautiful, light, spiritual Disneyland of love. The Tibetans have something slightly different to offer. So do the Chinese and so do the Japanese. And they all have their traditions. But in the center of all of them is the method. And the method isn't contained with any one of those traditions. The method is a living thing contained within the practitioners. Because either you have it or you don't. And I hope by the end of this, at least some of you have this in your bones, or at least in your flesh and blood. So you can take it with you and you can switch it on when you need to. And then we can preserve it and we can keep it alive, the way the Buddha intended it to be kept alive. Because the Buddha didn't want to create Buddhists, he wanted to create Buddhas. And so let's all do our best to be able to get there, to get as far into this as we can. The Buddha liked flavor too. He talks about a lot of flavors in his discourses. But he says eventually the Dharma has one taste. The Dharma is what he calls his teaching, the taste of freedom. Because all sensations experienced fully from beginning to end are empty. And so if everything becomes empty, you're free from any of the limitations you would otherwise have. And that's what this technique does. There's another reason I teach. Obviously, I love the people in my life and I want them to get it. And now a lot of them have got it, not just my mother, but other members of my family, other of the people close to me. Eventually, I stopped preaching to them. And so they stopped resisting and they started to go and check the technique out for themselves. It's made a massive difference in my life and the life of my family. And we all start to see that. If you practice deeply, it starts to resonate out from you. And this effect has a name. It's called the Maharishi effect, coined by someone from another tradition, Mahesh Maharishi Yogi. And the idea is that meditators resonate benefit out from them. Just as you've been sitting there and you've been collecting your merit and then we've been sharing it through our metta, they say this happens naturally. And if we collect a bunch of meditators together and they practice deeply, then they don't just change the weather, they start to change the entire environment. It starts to get more peaceful, more loving, less organized crime. And they did this experiment in a lot of different places. They've done it in cities in America, where they go and they test it by contacting the emergency forces, the hospitals, the ambulances, the firemen, the policemen. And they say, we're about to do this experiment and get these meditators together. During this period of time, this week that we're going to deeply meditate, please measure the rates of crime, the rates of people going into A&E, accidents and emergency in the hospital. And they're uniformly lower. They've done this in war zones. They even did it in Mozambique, where Joaquim Chissano, the then president, was a meditator. And he wanted to do it in his country, but they just didn't have enough meditators to do it. Because they say you need the square root of 1%. So he got all of his junior recruits from the army and some of his soldiers, and he forced them to meditate. He made it part of the program. So he got enough of them to meditate that eventually it didn't only reduce crime, it brought up the GDP. They had something like an expected growth of 4% that year, and I think it went up to 19% by the end of the year. So it has wonderful effects. And my dream is that we have enough people doing this that it doesn't just have a localized effect, it has a global effect. So they say that we need the square root of 1%. But I think personally we should aim for 1%, just because you never know, right? You've been there sitting meditating, and you know sometimes you're meditating deeply and you're feeling the spirit. You know, and sometimes you're thinking about cookies. And so if we overshoot it and we go for 1%, then we know we're going to have enough people meditating on their mats. That means we need to train up 80 million meditators. It's what we need to get to. And those Buddhist monks that come and meditate here, I was a junior monk in their tradition a while back. I went and shaved my head. Well, I mean, I usually shave my head, but I had to shave my eyebrows as well. I think they do that just to make you feel really separate from everyone else. Because if you want to do anything to make someone look strange, shave their eyebrows. But I was a Samanera, a junior monk in their tradition, and practicing with them. And they knew I'd come back to all of this. And they knew I'd been teaching meditation before. And the one I'm most connected to there, one of their abbots, Longpi Pradik, he asked me, he said that they have a dream of bringing together 1 million meditators in one place. And he asked me to help with that mission. And I was like, I had the same dream, the same mission. And he said, wonderful, we've built a place to be able to do it. We've built a temple that can house 1 million people. And they're just waiting for enough people to be trained for us all to gather there together and 1 million of us to all practice together at the same time. Let's call that the 1 million meditator mission. So if any of you want to help with that, then all you need to do is bring yourself, and ideally, 100 of your other friends. And then we can all get together and we can start to build towards producing this global Maharishi effect. So that's why the payment I want is for you to go and teach people in your lives, spread the technique, so we can get to that global Maharishi effect together. Because wouldn't it be beautiful to see that in our lifetime? Not to put it off like another 2,600 years and be like, oh yeah, there's going to be another guy that's going to come around in 2,600 years and he's going to do the whole thing and it's all going to be fine. The Buddha probably thought that. And look, we're still waiting. So let's get it done. But it's been a genuine pleasure practicing with all of you. You sat well, and despite all the cheating, you still went deep and started to access some of the technique. And imagine how deep you would have gone if you didn't cheat. And if you were actually silent the whole time, and you stopped staring at other meditators. Imagine. So now let's practice some metta for one last time. Let's collect ourselves. And the person I want you to send metta to is the person that you want to get out of here and tell your story to. Because I know everyone that goes through this has a story to tell. So close your eyes and think of who the first person is when you get out of here that you want to see and tell your story to. And just send that person some of that big love that now you know you've got inside of you. We're trained to be misers with our love, giving a little bit out here, a little bit there, because we think it's scarce. But now you realize you're an abundant and infinite source of love. So why not share it with everyone? Feel it resonating out from you into all the people in your life, all the connections you've made, throughout the decades that you've been alive. Sending it out indiscriminately. So you become a light within your network. Because that's what we're all here to do, right? Take the light of consciousness into the darkness. And maybe there's someone you've been wanting to forgive. Someone that you've hurt or wronged. That you want to be forgiven by. So bring this person to mind. And see if it's time for you to let go. Let go of holding on. To whatever they've done to you. Or asking forgiveness. And letting go of whatever you've done to them. Because we're all in this together. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Russian author, said, "What if there was only some place that we could send all the bad people in the world, separating them from the good?" But it's impossible. The line that divides good and evil runs down the middle of every human heart. And who wants to cut out a piece of their own heart? If we want to produce this global change, then eventually the love has to touch everyone. And so we may as well forgive them now. And move on lighter. Not carrying them anymore. And then let's come back. Come back to those wonderful souls that have done us good in our lives. That have been there for us when we needed them. Maybe you've also been down and out. And someone stepped in to save you. Stepped in to give you a hand or some love when you needed it. Maybe they're not in your life anymore. But bring them back to mind now and send them some love. Thanking them for everything they did for you. Which maybe you didn't do at the time. So do it now. And then come back to yourself, feeling the love just resonating through your body. That heat resonating through your body. And thank yourself for all the times that you've been there for you. Through all the highs and the lows, all the knocks that you must have been through to get to this point. Give yourself some love. For carrying yourself through all of that. And making it here as another beautiful Vipassana meditator. Thank you all for making it here. This 10-day Vipassana course is now over. How about we all get a big group photo before we say goodbye? Well, the cameras are still set up. So anyone who wants to be in the shot, just come and sit here. Let's all collect together. And there you go, Alex. You got to hear what the bell was for. You can sit wherever you... I'd say whoever wants to be in pole position meditation spot, then sit there. And then I'd say let Jamie and Sash and the taller guys stand up here. Who is it?
Pretty sure we're all wearing white actually right now. One, two, three, something. Yeah.
Let's all make prayer hands. Fandy, are we ready? And maybe you can actually catch that force of love on camera. So how about we all just sit with our eyes closed and just think of the person that we love the most. There you go, meditators. You're free again. We didn't order the regular breakfast this morning, so anyone who wants to go and order something, read or take your orders.
Just a couple of announcements again for anybody I didn't tell. Checkouts today at 11. You're welcome to stay on site as long as you want. Just return your badge. If it's broken, just let the staff know or you lost it. You're welcome to leave your bag with staff, so please don't all check out at 11 or you're gonna like swap the staff. Next, for the phones, you guys just want to line out outside of my room. I'll give them one by one. Please try your best not to use it on site. It is a no phone site, so don't be like the people on your phones. If you're gonna be on the phone, just do it in your room before you check out. Yeah, breakfast, we can go down. There'll be one item from the menu, a drink and food, so you can order whatever you like. And then lastly, anybody last night that raided the ice cream fridge, please just come and let me know. Staff needs to know for inventory purposes, so if you guys could just let me know. Not mad, we just need to know for
You guys thought you were so slick, didn't you?
We can't tell the flavor of ice cream on CCTV, so just to know that. Thank you guys.
Well done, guys. You did so good. All right, let's get something delicious. My pleasure.